And receive comments from the public. We have anything from anyone today? Looks like no. Item number 3, consider an act on request for adjustments. Mike or Jeannie?
Nothing from me.
Nothing, very good. The next item on the agenda is our consent agenda, which includes item 4 through 12. So if anybody would like to pull any of the items from the consent agenda to the regular agenda, let us know. If not, we would entertain a motion for items 4 through 12.
That's a lot of items to take.
It covers a lot of items.
So my question is, I do have several questions about a couple of things. Do we need to pull those if we have questions, or can we just discuss them and then?
The strategy and the technicality is to pull them. Just request we pull those from the consent agenda. Easy to do.
All right, well, in that case, I'd like to take item number 5. Item number 7. Item number 11. And
Maybe 8, 10.
and item number 8, if you wish.
Well, I just kind of usually goes over.
And I think that's all I have. 5. Oh, I had 6. Sorry. It'd have been easier just to let me ask my questions.
This is it's set up for this purpose. We're good. So it's 5, 6, 7, 8, and 11.
5, 6, 8. Yes, sir.
Okay. So excluding those, do we have a motion to approve the other items on the consent agenda? So moved. Second.
Second.
All in favor? Motion carries. Very good. So now we will move to item number 5, receive and act on the financial reports and disbursements.
I just had one quick question on page, on page 5, under other revenue, it just says other revenue, $1,019,000. Is that just taxes receivable?
That's $1,019,000 from Hughes that we're going to
Okay.
be paying be at the end of this month.
All right. See, that was all I had on that.
That's good. Okay, do we have a motion to approve agenda item number 5?
Make a motion, we approve.
We have a second? Okay, all in favor? Motion carries. Now we'll look at agenda item number 6 in monthly investment.
The only question I had regarding that is, I noticed that we have a printout that shows us what we have as MUD 39, but yet in the narrative, in the write-up, it said that all MUDs had 44 million here, 44 million, so forth. So are our funds separate and apart at these investment firms, or we just keep them separate on our books as far?
The banks, pools, books and everything.
Okay, so it all says MUD 39 on their books. Okay,
That's your balances, those were found.
Yeah. I saw that. Okay, that's the only question I had regarding that.
Okay, we have a motion to approve agenda item number 6.
Made.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Agenda item number 7, the tax collector's report.
Yeah, I only had one quick question, and I know this is, we've probably talked about it before, but it shows unpaid taxes of $1.7 million. Is that pretty standard at this point in terms of the percentage that we typically collect? I know we have a really good record of collecting taxes, but I'm just wondering if we've only collected 419,000 compared to 2 million something. Is that?
The largest tax service that they contract to mortgage companies, they normally pay in December, they didn't pay till January. So that's why.
Okay,
So you are behind
Yeah.
typical years.
okay.
That,
But this is not out of whack. Okay,
have they paid yet?
Yeah.
So your next budget will reflect it.
got it. Thank you.
Okay, a motion to approve number 7.
Make a motion, we approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you. And agenda item number 8. Penalty and interest item.
My only question about this is, this is a resolution by this board. Is this a standard thing we have to do every year in order to impose penalties? It's,
Well, so, yes, it's a standard item, actually, 8, 9, 10, and 11 are all standard January items that we have each year. That typically lay on the consent agenda because there's not much in the way of discussion or deliberation, where item number 14 is also a standard item every January, but there is discussion about, what do you want your exemptions to be? So we didn't put that on the consent agenda. As far as the penalty itself, so it's not, the penalty, the additional penalty will not be imposed unless you adopt the resolution. You're going to pay the delinquent tax attorney that 20% contingent fee if they collect on the taxes regardless. The question is whether the district is made whole and collects 100% at the end of the day, or if you collect 80%. So it's in the district's best interest to adopt the penalty so that you're made whole. And the delinquent taxpayer has to pay for the attorney fee and not the district having to pay for it.
okay,
Yeah.
But we have to put this on the agenda each year because each levy is separate. and
Right, for that tax year.
January.
that particular tax year. Gotcha. Okay.
This is just for the mud portion of it.
That's
Correct.
correct. And this is also just as to personal property. There's a separate resolution that is usually approved in March or April for real property. The tax code allows for the additional penalty to be passed on for personal property beginning on April 1st. But for real property, it cannot be passed on until July 1st. So,
What is a real property?
that's dirt. That's dirt. That's a house, but it's not, somebody has a home office in their home, office, equipment, furniture, et cetera. Or if it's a business, all the office equipment, computers, et cetera.
Mhm.
That's personal property as opposed to real property, which is the structure, the office building and the dirt.
Got it.
That's all I have.
Okay, we have a motion to approve item number 8.
Make a motion, we approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. And then item number 11.
Yeah, I only have one quick question regarding the date on here, and maybe I just misread it, or this is how it's supposed to read, but item number 11 is a resolution to submittal of the 23 water smart application. And section 1 reads, the board does hereby authorize the submittal of this 2023 water smart application for the period of January 1, 2022 to December 31st of 2022. So we're presenting the application for the previous year, or we're
Correct.
presenting the application for the current year?
Previous year.
Okay, and so we're just attesting that we've done everything we're supposed to have done and we qualify and all that stuff. Is that
You're correct.
okay? All right.
Motion to approve that.
Second.
We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you very much. That's
Thank you for your indulgence.
happy to help. Now we'll move on to item number 13. Review and consider the district's fiscal year financial report.
I'm John Knox, with Knox Cox and Company. Excuse me. Another successful audit. Don't have a lot to report. Hoping you'll have questions, but. I'm sure.
On the topic of questions, this was my first time. That's the paper that we received at our homes.
Mhm.
Okay, perfect. I apologize for not sending that in the first time. I didn't know what that was.
Oh, quite understandable. Yeah, and they're not required to respond. But yeah, we send the director confirmations as well, right? Another standard report following TCEQ guidelines. We've got a file with the TCEQ by February 13th or thereabouts. So what we'll probably want to do, pending approval from y'all, is prepare the final reports early February, get it to Brian's group and let them get it with the TCEQ. And so give y'all a couple of weeks if you want to prove it and you see a typo, or you don't like the way something is worded, or if you think a number's wrong or whatever, you can call Jim or Maureen, and they can get with me and we can, get it resolved and make sure. So Brian's usually a lot better with, describing what motion we're looking for today, but, something to the effect that, we'd like you to approve it pending any, unsubstantial changes that may be made by directors, consultants, and so forth.
And we, for the newer directors, this is a protocol we've used for many years because the deadline for getting this submitted to the TCQ is prior to your next meeting. So we ask that you review it. If you have any comments, send those to me. We'll get them incorporated into the final document that is submitted. What we're asking today is your approval, and Brian can help word it. It's subject to any changes that might come up. Now, anything substantial, red flags come up or you send our way, we'll hold it, but we would like to meet the deadline. And we're asking your conditional approval today and then give you another couple of weeks to give us any feedback you might have regarding adjustments.
Which is how we've done it in previous years.
That's correct.
I do have a couple of questions.
Right.
So is this basically considered a general accounting audit report that like a business would get for auditing purposes, a financial audit? Is that what this is? So in your scope of having done this, you would have looked at the books for MUD 39, the income, the expenses, and looked at everything as well as all the other MUDs, correct?
That's right.
And when you did that, for this particular report, how long of a time frame does that typically take?
Well, in terms of the WWA as a whole and all the MUDs,
Well, probably you can't tell me MUD 39, but just as a whole.
but a typical MUD audit would be running the 80 to 100 hour neighborhood. We have some huge efficiencies with the WWA because we basically, about half of our time is spent on internal controls, risk assessment, all these kind of behind the scenes things that an audit is required to have. And then about half of it is spent on the numbers. So in your case, if it was an 80-hour job, we would spend 40 hours in numbers and report writing and 40 hours in the assessment and risk and all that. But really, we're probably down to about 4 hours because of the efficiencies that we gain from the WWA kind of acting as a whole. And so, I would guess we probably have 40 to 50 hours in your job.
So if we review this and have questions and find something that, hey, we have a question about this, is there likely that we're going to discover something that you guys haven't already found or know about or?
The answer is probably not, but I always love it when we get input, especially from the directors. Brian's group is going to mull them over. I'm sure Jim is at least taking a look at them. And so you have a group of people already catching typos. Is every document perfect? Probably not, but we get pretty close. But what usually comes to light, especially from the directors, is on pages 3 through 8 is what we call the management's discussion and analysis. And it's kind of the executive summary. And we sometimes get input from the directors there on things they'd like to have included in there. That's kind of our free flowing part. And we kind of turned them into plug and chug for these MUDs, but we can certainly, if there's something that you want highlighted or discussed in there, we can add that. And that we get comments now and again from the directors. The numbers are the numbers. They're pretty close to what you've been seeing all year. It really be surprising. And the notes are really in accordance with our standards, and the supplementary schedules in the back are in accordance with TCQ. So there's not a lot of leeway. It might be typos. I mean, I always say look at TSI 8, which is the last schedule. You have to make sure everybody's name's spelled correctly. Fees in terms of office makes sense and all that. We look a lot too. We'll get a lot of input there. But to answer your question, I don't expect from y'all a technical review.
Gotcha.
We've got.
Yeah, next year's audit for y'all will be a bit more interesting, assuming that We just completed the annexation after the end of the fiscal year and approved the strategic partnership agreement. That'll probably get referenced in here with. And then if we have the creation, successful creation of the defined area, then that will be addressed. So we'll have some interesting things
Sounds like,
next fiscal year.
sounds like Brian's gonna be adding my footnotes next year.
But this year, it should be pretty
Right.
standard from what you see in the prior years. Not much changed in this fiscal year from prior. We'll see some new stuff, but like next year.
I move for approval.
We have a second?
You move for approval with some conditions that if there anything.
Yeah, however,
Yeah, the subject
Right.
to, subject to any additional comments by director, staff, or consultants, and authorized filing by the statutory deadline.
that's where I.
Okay, that's what he said.
Same motion he makes every year.
That's what he was saying.
On page 46, on my name, it says resident of district. I am a resident of the district, but it's empty.
Right.
Good catch.
That'll be in the final.
Thank you.
So we have a motion, a second with a comment. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I think,
Thank
did you
you.
make the second? I know you.
Yeah.
Okay. Item number 14, the exemptions from taxation.
Alright, so these are the exemptions that you will see show up on your tax bill that will be sent out in likely October of this year. It was a little bit confusing because we're talking about exemptions at the beginning of the year, but it's actually for your bills that you'll get at the end of the year. What you had for exemptions for 2022, you had the 20% maximum residential homestead exemption, and that's consistent with all the other MUDs in the woodlands. And then a $10,000 over 65 and disabled exemption. So you do need to adopt a new exemption each year. Can be the same as what it was in prior years. Same drill, because there's new taxes levied each year. You have to designate your exemption each year.
I just have one quick question. So do all of the residents claim their homestead exemption in this district? Do we see that? Or do we see that there's a percentage that do not because they don't know any better?
Well, you have to, it has to be your homestead. You have to live in it. So that there could be rental property over there. They can't homestead.
But we don't have a large number of homes that are not claimed a homestead exemption.
Right, but that's what it is. I
Gotcha.
mean, you know,
25 exemption. 65 is 20%.
20%.
That's what we, and
I have a question. I thought homestead was 10%.
it's 20.
It's 20. 20 is the maximum. Oh, yeah.
You just got a raise.
Love that.
it's just nothing.
Higgins is one of the very few places where buds max out the residential homestead exemption. Like, we're blessed with a good commercial base that allows us to do that. If you don't have any commercial property, it doesn't make any sense to do a residential exemption,
Yeah.
because all you gotta do is raise your tax rate to offset the revenue. But we have a good commercial base here that's made that possible.
Fantastic.
Any other questions on item number 14?
I'm looking for approval.
Second.
And we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, item number 15, received the Center River Authority report.
It has to report tonight.
All right. Wastewater strategic plan. So we've been working on this for over a year now. Time goes by pretty quick. So we finally got to the point where we have completed the stakeholder meetings. We're nearing completion of this first phase of the strategic plan. And really what I want to talk about today is the 3 recommendations that have come from STRA and were voted on by the stakeholders at the last meeting. That was January 10th. So there is no voting today from y'all in the mud. So it's just information and discussion opportunity. Next month in February, there will be an item on your agenda for the individual MUDs to vote on the stakeholders' recommendation. Moving forward to March, there'll be an agenda on the trustees, agenda item on the trustees meeting for essentially approval of the recommendations. So in your packet, page 42 is a one-page summary of the exhibits. Really what I want to highlight on this is the three recommendations. Those. Again, these are the recommendations from the stakeholder group. The first bullet is to continue to phase 2 of further refining, building a new membrane bioreactor plant adjacent to wastewater treatment facility 1 now. And that is alternative 9. And that, just remind you what alternative 9 is. It would be building a new plant 1 adjacent to the existing plant, all in one phase, approximately 2027 timeframe. An additional request from the stakeholders was that phase 2 would be no more than $500,000 in approximately 6 months. So it will be a much more condensed, shortened version. Within that scope of work, we primarily to look at refining the cost estimates, the financial piece, rate impacts, and then another big scope item would be what is the capacity need to be for this new plant, along with some other optimization and refinements. Second recommendation from the stakeholder group was to proceed with the land acquisition adjacent to wastewater treatment facility 1. We're estimating a cost around $6 million for that right now.
I mean, what much land?
Acreage wise, what is it? 10, I want to say 10 acres or so. I think it's about 8 different parcels.
That's no sawdust.
It's off Sawdust and it backs up the Golden Road. East of our. The third recommendation is to commence preliminary engineering for the conveyance alternative that was selected and recommended, which is constructing a new gravity line from Lift Station 5 south of Woodlands Parkway down to the new treatment facility 1. That gives us the ability to remove up to 5 lift stations from the system and go to more gravity. So those are the 3 recommendations that somehow is going to be worded into an agenda item next month. Couple other items, just wanted to let you know is in your packet, you do have the meeting summary from the January 10th stakeholder meeting. There is also the slides up on the Google Drive, and there is also a draft technical report, which covers everything from November of 21 till now, that is available for you all to comment, ask questions. Let me know if you have anything that's something we're looking to finalize by the end of the month, first week of February. And there's numerous appendices associated with that too. So a lot of information, a lot going on. This is going to be something you're going to continue to hear about for multiple years forthcoming here. So what questions can I help answer today?
First of all, thanks to Sean for sitting on that committee for us, representing MUD 39, so we appreciate that. So the 3 options that we're going to hear or have to take a vote on next time, are you going to ask us to choose one of the options, or are we just going to vote on the 3 options and somebody else is going to make a choice as to which is the better option? Or I'm
So
misunderstanding.
all 3 of those are essentially one recommendation.
One
We took 3,
Gotcha.
so in the stakeholder meeting.
There's
we
not
took-
really anything to choose from. It's been narrowed down from 9 alternatives on the plant, on what the plant's gonna look like. Taking the old plant, buying the land next door, building the new plant, allow the old plant and the new plant to run simultaneously until the new plant is up, to create as little inefficiencies as possible, allow them to do their job, less risk. And if, pipe breaks or contractor hits something, we don't end up without our sewer being treated. They did a net present value summary on that. And it always came up with this alternative is the final one. It competed against another one to rebuild the same area essentially and to add a little bit more space, but they would have to work over the current area while they're building. And it didn't make sense cost effective. And then before that, there was an option to stay with the conventional, that's, I guess, about 50 years old or so.
Technology.
Yeah, the technology, and they found that going with the new technology saved money. So, and it's able to be added in piecemeal. So that way, as the community grows, if there's need, we can add in additional units to add in more capacity. Whereas the conventional, I think it's more difficult to do that. So,
And add modules to
Yeah.
increase capacity.
thank you.
So basically one option, but several phases, right? It's several.
Yeah,
components.
it's, yes,
So how would it,
one recommend.
how would it work then if some MUDs vote for it and some MUDs vote to not do it? How would that, what's the ultimate deciding factor, I guess is my question.
I would imagine that everyone would vote for it. It was a unanimous decision by every stakeholder.
So
So,
when you as the stakeholder committee representative come to us, make the recommendation, you're assuming we're all gonna, as a board, vote for that recommendation and all the other stakeholders, okay.
yeah, I say that straightforward because it was the most cost-effective option with better technology and allow them to get the job done quicker.
Fair enough.
So.
I was gonna say, sorry, I did want to clarify one thing. For proceeding with the land acquisition and proceeding with the conveyance engineering, those were both unanimous votes during the stakeholder meeting. The recommendation to move forward into a phase 2 with alternative 9 was not. It was a 9 out of the 11 stakeholders voted for that. So in the grand scheme of things, when it comes to the MUDs and the trustees, as far as I'm aware, majority vote is the path forward on how that goes.
Right. Yeah, there were one or two that,
You know,
that,
MUD 386, which isn't served by this plant,
And then MUD 46.
46, you know.
Hence my question.
Understand.
Those two wouldn't be it.
Well, we'll see how it ends up, but at the stakeholder group meeting, those two did not support option 9.
So this is one regional plant to be the sewer treatment for all the MUDs.
no, this just replaces the oldest one at Sawdust. There's still plant 2 and there's still plant 3 that's in our neighborhood or in our MUD. So this one its useful life is up in a couple of years, like 5 years or so.
Basically, we
roughly.
got projects on hold right
Yeah.
now.
And then plant 2, I've never been to plant 2. Plant 2, I guess, has about 20-ish years left. So it didn't make sense to start that one and give up the useful life financially. So we paused that, focus on the one that needs it now, and then allow whoever is available in 20 years, whoever takes our seats in 20 years to start that project because it affects them and their families. And then the one in our MUD is the newest. And so that one has even longer tenure. And it's also super small. I think it was under like one, I don't know the acronym they all use, GDP.
0.9 million gallons.
Yeah. So it's super small. So.
Any other questions?
Very good. Thank you. Thanks again, Sean.
Infrastructure funding, I think,
Nothing for this MUD. The only thing is, for some of the MUDs that contribute to the Bear Branch Reservoir, Dan Crenshaw has been able to, I don't know what the proper term is, that identify 3.6 million that is going to be given to the wilderness community for the repairs of the dams. Because it's good.
Nice.
okay, thank you. Item number 16, the attorney's report.
Well, we are on track to call our election next month for the defined area. We've had a couple of conference calls with the engineer and financial advisor about the documentation for that, and those items are on track. So we do anticipate on the election to create the defined area as well as to have the bond election for the defined area at your meeting next month. Want to make triple sure that we have a quorum next month because the board meetings on Wednesday and the deadline to call the elections for the May cycle is on Friday. So if we lose our quorum, then we're kind of toast on the election. So I want to make sure we got a quorum for next month. That's all I have under the attorney's report. Happy to answer questions if I have them.
Just one quick question about the quorum. Is there a possibility of doing some sort of hybrid scenario if we ever had to? No, okay.
So the quorum, on that point, we all have to be physically present in the room. There's no digital capacity. Okay,
Special.
got it.
Okay, item number 17, excuse me.
17, you'll see the documentation there in the packet memo. It really wasn't an issue. Turnoffs and delinquent fees during winter storm Uri, but there were some water providers in the state that I guess weren't so accommodating. So that resulted in Senate Bill 3. PUC has now adopted rules to implement Senate Bill 3. It does require for districts for payment plans, and there's some parameters there for what those payment plans are for folks who are affected by an extreme weather event similar to Winter Storm Uri. The changes to the policy basically incorporate those PUC rule requirements into your policy, so they're easily accessible in the event that we have another rare event like that. Any motion on the policy?
So Mike,
We have a motion.
Second.
We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Item number 18, the general manager's report. Want to highlight from the trustee meeting, had a discussion regarding the recent Lone Star election. The fact that John Yours was on the ballot and won the election, and then was informed by the Lone Star Groundwater legal team that he was not an eligible candidate, could not be sworn in. That prompted our trustee board to talk about this and support President Bob Lux writing a letter to the board that you may have seen. I think we sent that out, encouraging them to appoint John Yours. Well, since then, John has resigned or submitted his resignation from MUD 36. They will act on that this afternoon. And this topic was discussed at the monthly Chamber of Commerce board meeting last week. There was some interest in their group to see John get that position that he, from all our perspectives, was elected to. So they're having their monthly business advocacy council meeting Friday, which is where they take up legislative matters and other matters. So I will be attending that meeting. I think coincidentally, the River Authority was on their calendar to talk about some of their activities. So we'll be requesting that the Business Advocacy Council make a recommendation to their board to show support for John being appointed, and looking at maybe others in the community to do that as well. And the story, the press release and the story did get some legs. If you saw the Chronicle and I think Impact, both on their digital platforms, carried the story today. So that's good. The Public Education Committee at the trustee level reviewed and approved their strategic communication plan for the year. Also reported back the first week in January, we had a meeting with the Subsidence District GM, Mike Turco, who lives here in the Woodlands, and his technical staff. A long meeting about satellite technology and subsidence. You've heard us talking about meeting with U of H, and we were talking with them before they released their story about subsidence data. Anyway, they've they have the technology to give us some detailed data regarding the woodlands in Montgomery County. The report, the press release and the report that went around this community was a bigger area. They did talk about the woodlands. But they can kind of zoom in, if you will, on Montgomery County and the woodlands and get some data. So that it has some interest, but the meeting centered around subsidence districts actually been active with U of H and SMU on their departments to get satellite data. And so I think what came out of the meeting in January was maybe a consortium of us, the township, others, maybe even invite Lone Star to, if we want to kind of partner to collect and get some more data. And then what will we do with that once we get it? So more to come.
On that topic, I'm still kind of new to subsidence. I went to the Lone Star meeting because I thought it was required. I found out it wasn't, but I learned about the cost of the studies and the equipment to study subsidence and how far they have to drill down and all the equipment and processes that they have to do. And then it really interested me because they said that the worst subsidence in the woodlands is between Woodlands High School and Powell Elementary, and my children attend Powell Elementary. And I thought, well, that's probably not the best. And I'm wondering, what is the difference in maybe the accuracy or quality of the data using the underground technology that they use versus the satellites? It seems like satellites could be potentially more cost effective to get to really, like I said, zoom in on those particular areas to then give Lone Star a good idea of where to put their $1 million project, because they really kind of in that meeting seemed like they wanted to know from the community where they should start focusing that effort. And it seems like if we have satellite technology, we could probably zoom in and figure out a good place to tell them versus people just offhand telling them, check their neighborhood or not my neighborhood kind of thing. So I appreciate that because, if they're going to spend $1 million, then it'd be nice to make sure they get it right.
And here is information on that topic. We partnered with HARC, Houston Advanced Research Center, a couple of years ago, and put together a science advisory committee made of really smart people in the geoscience arena. And if you haven't read the report, I'll get you a link. And they actually did a detailed review of their ideas in Montgomery County and where they thought extensometers should be placed.
Okay.
And their recommendation was 2, one up near the airport in Conroe and another in the woodlands somewhere. But they also recommended about 20 additional what we call GPS sites, like that measure the surface deformation.
Right.
The key with the extensometer is it gives you the surface subsidence, but it also tells you where that is occurring underground.
Right. Well, whether it's this lake,
Whether
that
it's
lake,
the
or
Jasper, the Evangeline, or a combination of both, or that sort of thing. And so that's the real benefit of the extensometer. And I think we should support that report, which is 2 extensometers for Montgomery County. Lone Star has that report. We've encouraged them to utilize that.
And that's what they talked about in the meeting was they didn't know where to put it in the woodlands and they were seeking advice. And I had to leave because the meeting went too long.
Yeah, but what they're wanting to do is just put one in the woodlands. And we think because there's such a debate about certain leaders that the Jasper is non-compressible and doesn't subside, that they also put an extensometer up near the airport where 100% of the use is in the Jasper. Here in the woodlands, it's a combination of Jasper and Evangeline.
Okay.
We know we've got subsidence around here, and we think it's a combination of both. But in order to demonstrate the Jasper also is compressible, it would be helpful to put it somewhere in an area where Jasper water is the 100% source.
That seems logical.
So does that give you kind of
It
an idea?
does. It helps. I think over the next months and quarters and years, I'll continue to learn more and more about the topic. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. And then I referenced three actually compliment emails, messages from regarding our field crews. So always nice to talk about those and see those. And then also in your packet is a short story about Oak Ridge needing to do a kind of an immediate increase in their water and sewer rates. I just thought was an interesting story. So that concludes my report, and I'm open for questions. If not, we'll go on to number 19, the Woodlands Water Trustees Report. And Ted, this is your opportunity to talk about anything at the trustee meeting that I may have left out or that you feel needs emphasized.
Well, one thing I do want to commend the trustee audit, the Public Relations Committee and Education Committee. I thought their presentation, I don't think it's in here, but I thought their presentation and their narrative was a really good plan, if you will, for educating the public. So I think that's going to be very important. And they had a couple of points that they wanted to make over time, and they'll put that out there and, utilize the staff to do that. The other main thing that came from that is that we hired, or the trustee board hired the replacement for Jim, and that'll come about. Soon.
Eric Peterson begins February the 6th, and then there'll be a several-month training and transition period for your new GM.
And Jim will be hanging around to help him get acclimated and train him and
Yes.
all that type of stuff for as long as we absolutely need. 2 years, 3 years.
To be determined, but it won't be that long.
And that was the biggest thing that I think that I took away from the trustee meeting, other than what we've already heard, a couple things about subsidence and the audit report and that type of stuff.
One thing I did forget to mention under the GM report, we have two MUDs, MUD 60 and MUD 47, that are actively pursuing and preparing a message to an annual type message to their customers regarding activities that have occurred over the past year. Our public education group, John Geiger, has developed a template for that. And I think MUD 47 actually met in December to try to finalize their message. MUD 60 is working on finalizing theirs, but I wanted to offer that template and that topic to all the MUDs to see if it was something you might be interested in doing for your residents.
I think it's a great idea. How would we get it out in the
We would do
statement?
an insert. It's about $1 per page for insert. And then, of course, we can do email e-blast. If you're interested, what we can do is put samples of theirs in your next packet. And then you can be thinking about topics that over the last 12 months that you think may be important to your residents. And then we can use that format and then work something up unique to your MUD.
Yeah, I think it's definitely, I would think it would be worthwhile to our residents to know what's going on with the TACA scenario, the annexation, lowering the tax rate. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that we did in this MUD in this past year that they should know about, and anything that might be coming up. So I think that's a great opportunity for us to put out a newsletter, so to speak.
Well, if you have ideas, John Geiger, I think all know John, just let him, hey, here's a topic, and then we'll develop something to show you as along with the draft at your next meeting. Very good. Going on to item number 20, closed session not needed today. So discuss any matter for placement on your agenda. We'll have the topic of a new resident message newsletter type thing. And I don't have anything else unless you guys. With that, 12:44, we are adjourned. Thank you.